So there is a question here that says, what did success look like to me back then, and how has that definition changed over time? So I mean, like I mentioned previously, then success for me, and of course, based on my experiences and based on the things that I've had to endure, I think then success for me was just to earn more money, being able to foot my own bills without necessarily depending on anyone, and then professionally just continuing to climb the professional ladder, or the corporate ladder. So I think that was what success like kind of meant to me. But but right now I think, and I guess as we all grow older, the definitions of these things change. And right now, if you ask me how I define success now, I think right now it's more of how I'm influencing people. Like, what role am I playing in people's success stories? Kind of like, oh, you know, will someone somewhere say, oh, it was because of this thing that I did for them that actually like gave them that breakthrough? Or will someone even say, oh, it was based on this advice that they got from me? So I think right now for me, yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, success, like especially when it comes to like continuing to climb the corporate ladder, yeah, I think that's still there. But right now for me, success is beyond just that right now. It is also about how am I affecting people's lives positively. So I think right now that's how I am looking at, or that's how I'm thinking of success. And there's a question that says, were there moments along my journey where I almost gave up, and what kept me going? Or 100%. Definitely. I mean, there were days when I had interviews, and then I would just wake up, and then I would just I just wouldn't have like the excitement, the enthusiasm to get ready and go for that interview. Like it just wouldn't be there. So definitely there were days like that. There were days where I felt defeated. There were days where I felt like nothing was going to change. That you know it's like the old cycle thing is just going to be that way. There were days definitely that I felt like that. But honestly, every time I felt like that, I just think about a lot of things. I think about like the situation at home. I think about some of the humiliation that I've had to face. I think about all of these things, and then once I just like think about that, then one final question I ask myself is, do you want to just sit down here and sulk, or do you want to keep pushing? Do you want to keep fighting? And instantly, like my response to that is that, well, things have to change. I cannot continue like this. And that just gives me like a new burst of energy to just like go for whatever I needed to go for, and yeah, just get it done. There's a question here that says, can I share a time when failure actually turned out to be a gift or a redirection towards something better? Absolutely. And I think I have a very have a very good story or a scenario to share here. So if you remember, like I mentioned earlier, that I started out as a customer care professional, like 40K salary, and then down the line I think I'd already started my master's degree program then, but then I was still doing the customer care work. So as I was in the middle of that, I then started applying for HR roles. So in the middle of that, I got an interview invite from an HR consulting company. I still remember. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but I still remember the name of the company. So then I was working in Surulere, the HR consulting company. Was in Ikoyi. I don't know if they are still there. So I was pushing out applications a lot. So finally, I got like the interview invite to come to the company and then interview for them, and I was really excited because I'm like, oh, okay, now it looks like my dream of transitioning into the HR field is kind of like coming to pass. So I was very excited and went for the interview, did the assessment, met the partner, who I think he was also like the founder of the consulting company, and it was great. And I think a few days after, I got an email from them, and they were like, "Oh well, congratulations. We're going to make you an offer. Like you impressed us that even though you didn't that we felt like there were some skills that you or that there are certain skills that you lack, but regardless, you feel like you also have like something to offer the company. You are teachable and all of those things, and you are smart. So we're going to make you an offer. And then they shared like details of the offer with me in the email, and they were like, okay, in the next couple of days, I should expect an offer letter from them. And I was just like, well, God, thank you. Like this is it. This is it finally. Because and the good thing then was that by the time I did that interview and got that email from them, the loan that I said I took from my boss where I was working, I think I was almost done. So when I submitted my resignation, my notice period, I think that was going to be like it was going to be like end of the month, and that was going to be the last installment of that loan that I needed to pay back. So I was just like, oh wow, that God just works in ways that we can never imagine. That I just felt like God just planned everything to work out perfectly. So I sent in my resignation, and my manager was like, oh, why am I leaving? And then I explained to him that come, he knew that I was enrolled in a master's degree program. He knew I was very passionate about HR, because even then the company that I was working for was a very small company, and the company didn't have like an HR team. So what I then did was I took it upon myself to just like put some policies in place for the company, and my boss was really impressed. So he really liked me. So I was like, oh well, he understands that yeah, I need to pursue like my own thing, and he doesn't have an problem with it. He accepted the resignation and all. 2 weeks after I got the email from the company, they said that they were going to send the offer letter. A couple of days after, 2 weeks later, I didn't get an offer letter from them. So I followed up with the partner, and the response was like, "Oh, he's sorry that he's out of the country, and you try as much as possible to get that finalized as soon as he's back from." I think he said he was in the UK or something. He said he would get that finalized as soon as he was back or something. And then I responded like, "Okay, well, no problem. That I've resigned already, so I'm hoping that he comes back to the club." This was in September, if I remember correctly. This was in September 2000 and September 2016. Yeah, September 2016. So I was like, well, like it's fine. I get it. That's yeah. I'm going to wait and all those things. And then when the time came for me to like leave the job, I left the job. So that meant what that meant was that I wasn't earning anything again. And you can imagine that how things, because again, if you remember correctly, I said, like, on the home front, no source of income anywhere again. So, and then I'm unable to earn anything again as well. So you can imagine what that time also looked like. So September I stopped working, and then, you know, uh, 1 month passed, 2 months passed. I didn't hear anything from them. So I think sometime in November, there's some person, great guy. He was running an HR outsourcing company on the side at the time. We were both in the master's program together. He's a very experienced HR guy. So he was running like an HR outsourcing company on the side, and was like, "Hey, Alpha, is this project I'm working on? Do you want to, like, I need you to help me do this, this." I'm like, "Oh, why? Well, why not? I'm not doing anything right now, so I'm happy to, work with you on it." So it was that I was able to. I mean, he wasn't making a lot of money from it. So I think what I was getting in a month, then I think for November, December, when I was doing the work, I think I was getting like around 20,000 naira from. But hey, I mean, that's better than nothing. So I mean, unfortunately, I never heard back from that consulting company. Like, and they never, like, I don't even like to think about that. That's And I learned the hard way that, oh, until you have your signed offer letter, that, you know, don't. That was like one of the very first hard lessons I learned as a young professional. But even like that, I felt like, he was very irresponsible of the company, or the partner of the company. Anyways, so I, again, I was working with the guy. That's the guy that we were in the master's program together, supporting with this project. And then in December, I applied for an HR associate role at a company. So the company was like an international company, but they like the present they have it they had it present in Nigeria at the time. So I started the application process. I think the interview process was like five or six stages. I think. But I mean, I went through the process. December, I did about four stages, and then I never heard back from them. Like after like four stages of the interview, and then out of nowhere, in March 2027, I got an email from them like, "Hey, are you still interested in this position?" Ah, and I go, "Definitely, that I'm still interested." So they were like, "Okay, I should come in for a final interview with the director of the HR team." So I went in there. The office was in Sabo Yaba. Went in there, met the director of HR, and after the conversation, she told me right there and then that, "You know what? We're going to offer you this position. It's not like you're the best candidate, but," and I remember her words very clearly. She said, like, she looked at my resume. She saw that I was like, I'd taken like a lot of, certificate, not maybe not certifications, but she saw that I had, like, because then, before I started the master's program in HR, I had done like a couple of free online diplomas in human resources, just to, like, keep myself, like, fresh. And then just like, then, like, I was really curious about what HR was. So every free time I had after work, then I would take like a lot of free online diploma, courses in HR. And then so it was based on that knowledge that I started building on my HR, my HR expertise. So she was like, well, I mean, she looks, and then I made sure to mention all of those diplomas in my resume. And then after then, like, oh, there was like a master's HR in view. So she said it was just basically because of that, that yes, I didn't have, because then I think they said they were looking for someone with about 2 years of HR experience or 1 year of HR experience. She said, even though I didn't have the required experience, but she saw what she saw in me was that she saw someone who, who was very passionate about this profession, and someone who is doing everything possible to get his foot, you know, like in that profession, and just get started in that career path. And based on even my response, I was responding to some of the questions that she asked, and she was very impressed that, I mean, for someone who, as in, who doesn't have hands-on experience in HR, with this amount of knowledge, then you definitely know your onions. And based on that, she, I got the job basically. And I remember, I think the salary that they offered me at the time, I think it was 85,000 or 87,000. So that was, so I think that's in that scenario when I started working, when I started on the job. And the good thing is that the distance, because it was also on the mainland, so it was very easy for me to commute. If you remember correctly, the consulting company that I told you about, it was on the island. It was in Ikoyi, and then they were going to offer me 70,000. But now here I am, finally getting my first HR role with slightly higher pay. And then it was so good that, because like I said, I was doing my master's in the at the University of Lagos, so my office was also in Yaba. So it was very easy for me to, like, combining school and work. Like, it was very seamless. All I needed to do was just like, and then I think all these e-bikes were still, they were starting to come up in Lagos. So all I just needed to do was just, like, take, I think, go card out something, and then just in 10 minutes I was in Unilag. So I feel like God just, like, set that up, like, perfectly for me, that, and every time I think about it, I'm always thankful to God that that offer letter from the consulting company, never came, and I never signed before. Because if it had come, I kind of feel like, the trajectory of my life would, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been a bad thing, but where I am right now, I kind of feel like maybe it would have been a different path, to be honest. So again, I'm eternally grateful to God that uh that offer letter never came. And I say this because down the line, one of the jobs that I would eventually get, and one of the I like one of the jobs that I think actually, like, kind of changed my finances. The job came from someone we worked together at this company that I said I just joined. The company that I said was going to pay me 87,000. So there was someone on the team then, it was a recruiter. And then down the line later he moved, and then everybody moved. And then later, like 2 years or 3 years later, reached out to me and was like, oh, there is this opportunity that, they've been trying to close, that there's this role that they've been trying to fill. And then he said, when he saw the job description, it was just like, I know somebody that easily fits this profile. I know somebody that can do this job. And then he reached out to me. I was like, about how far? This is the role. Like, they've been trying so hard to fill it. And then I told them, I was like, okay, why not? And the funny thing is that even that job, like, some people had gone all the way to, like, the final stage by the time I was going to start the process. So again, just how, God had designed everything to be, and I ended up getting that job. So, like, to bring it back home to the question, so I think that's definitely a time when, that failure of getting that consulting job actually turned out to be a blessing. Um, so there's a question here on imposter syndrome. So how did I deal with imposter syndrome, or the fear of not being enough when I start to succeed? And one thing I'll say again is that and I can't say it enough. I always thank God for the gift of good people, because like I said earlier, like I feel like God really blesses me with good people a lot. I don't have like a lot of people in my network. I have lots of friends, but the few one lots of friends, but the few ones I have are genuinely good people that look out for me. So I always thank God for the gift of good people. So I mean, imposter syndrome. Even from when I was in the university, like my classmates would always say, "Man, this guy, like you're a smart guy. Like yeah, like I talk and then I was not. If I exams, I didn't even used to read for exams, to be honest. Like when it was exam period, like everybody, because I stayed in the hostel, everybody would go to for night classes. Like I would be the only one, or maybe me and a few other for serious people like me, would be the only ones left in the hostel. But there was a day I felt like, am I really serious with my life? Because everybody is going to night class to read, and then me, I'm here sleeping. Like, but I think, and even up until now, it's still my nature. Like, I don't joke with my bedtime. I do not joke with my bedtime. So, but then people will be like, this guy, you're not even reading as much as we're reading, but then, the way you analyze things, the way you understand these things, it's just like, yeah. But then, sometimes I'll still doubt myself. Even when I started working, in my professional life, like I'd worked with managers that made me feel like I didn't know what I was doing, or I wasn't doing things the right way. Then I would talk to like people, talk to friends, talk to colleagues, and then they would have a different opinion that I know that they tell me they don't think the manager actually knows what he or she is saying, that I'm actually like doing an amazing job and all of those things. So again, the gift of people. So that's like one of the one of the ways I was able to actually like deal with that. Yeah, even though it kind of felt like I was waiting for people's validation, but down the line, I then started telling myself that, I mean, if people are seeing this thing in me, I'm not seeing these things in myself, then there's a problem. So it was then that I now started also like believing in myself that yes, I have gotten this far in life. I've gotten this far in my professional career, not by luck, but because of what I know, because of the knowledge that I have, and because of the value that the whichever company I was working for, because of the value they saw in me, and because of the value that I was adding to the team. So I would always, remind myself of that. So every time I worked on something and I felt like it wasn't good enough, or I started like second guessing myself, I would always remind myself that, well, I have come this far, not by luck, because again, everywhere I've worked, I didn't know anybody except for the company where I said, one of the persons who had worked, and it was a referral. It wasn't like, oh, he was the one that interviewed me or something. It was just a referral, just like, this is a great guy, this is a great candidate, speak to him. So yeah, that was how I was able to overcome that imposter syndrome. This question is very very interesting. So when did I realize that I have made it, but I'm still that same kid deep down? Hmm. When did I realize that I'd made it? Well, well, I mean, it's subjective. I, I'm not where, and this may sound cliche, but I'll say it anyways. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm thankful to God that I'm not where I used to be. And to answer that, I mean, again, I've shared a lot about my journey, my experience. So from a 40,000 naira job when I first started working, moved to 85,000 naira job. From there, moved to another job that was paying me 170,000, which was like double of what I was earning in the previous role, from 170,000, moved to a job, which was the job that I was talking about, that my friend that worked together, or my colleague that worked together, but now we're good friends. My colleague that worked together referred me for. So then I think it was about, I think the salary was about 250,000. Then and the funny thing is that as far back as, because I joined the company in 2019, as far back as 2017 or 2017, it was one of the, in fact, the company actually won the best place to work. It was number one best company to work in Nigeria. I think about 2 or 3 times consecutively in a row. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but so then, it was like everyone's dream, every young guy's dream to work in that company. In the company, it's a tech company, very big tech company, global tech company. So every young guy's dream. Even though I wasn't a software engineer, because like the company, like most of the employees are software engineers, was like I said, it's a tech company, global tech company. But even as someone who was like a budding HR professional, I still wanted to work there because of like the culture and everything I read about the company. So I mean, fast forward down the line, I I was working, I was in that company. So I think the salary was about maybe 250,000 naira. But what then changed, which is maybe my response to the question that you asked me was, but down the line, the company then decided to start paying us in US dollars. I mean, based on like the way like the value of the naira was going at the time. So the company then decided to start paying us in US dollars. So what that then did was that increased my my earning power significantly. So when we started getting paid in US dollars, I think my take home, I mean, of course, the 250 or 250,000 naira that I started with, down the line, it got increased due to like, merit increases and promotions and all of those things. But when we started earning in US dollars, I think the equivalent of my salary in naira at the time was over 500,000 naira, over 500,000 naira. And then down the line, the equivalent of that increased to about maybe 600,000 or 700,000 naira. Yeah, I think so. And then later down the line, I moved to another company that was also paying me in US dollars, and my salary, like, take home pay, like in naira, kind of like doubled or even almost tripled. Like, so, so that was, so I think it was at that point, I was like, yes, this is the life, but mind you, one thing is, as my earning ability increased, my lifestyle, I maintained my lifestyle. I think naturally I'm a very frugal, like, maybe not necessarily frugal, but I mean, my lifestyle did not change. Then I was living, and I got married in 2019. So, and I started doing it. So I was living in Abulegba, just living in a small estate in Abulegba. Then my rent was probably around maybe 300 or 350,000 or thereabout. Even with my salary of 250,000 naira, then that was my rent. So I was paying 350,000 naira monthly. And when I started earning like a lot, like I said, I started earning in USD. So I would just basically, for my monthly expenses, I would just convert very tiny fraction of my salary, convert it to naira, and then had my savings in US dollars. So I didn't change. I didn't even, interesting. I didn't even buy a car, and that's something that some of my friends never understood, because when we got married, when me and my wife got married, our mom was working in Abuja at the time, and she had a car in her house in Lagos, and she was like, you know what, why don't you guys just take this car? I mean, it's just lying there, nobody's using it. So that was how we started, like, using that car. And so when I started, like, my friends were like, oh, God, go buy motor, you get money. I'm like, but then I didn't think it made any sense for me to, I mean, maybe I would have, but then there were, because I actually wanted to be honest, but I think my wife was like vehemently against it. Because then we had also then started thinking of relocation plans, and we had already started planning of coming to Canada. So it's like it didn't make sense to get a car. So we're driving it was a small Toyota Corolla, 2000 model, and and yeah, very good car, very reliable, and decent car. So my lifestyle did not change. Interestingly, I remained like the modest guy. I mean, yeah, no. So it was even hard to tell that this guy, probably has like some savings in like thousands of dollars in his in his bank account. So yeah, I think it would be, yeah, I think it was at that point that I felt like, okay, well, this is it. But again, it didn't change me. It didn't change who I am. I mean, I've always been that, you know, maybe not carefree, but again, the funny guy that everybody probably knows, like, crack jokes, and just relate with people the way I've always related with them, even when when I didn't have nothing. So yeah, I say that